From the newsrooms of the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, this is Please Explain. I'm Samantha Selinger-Morris. It's Monday, October 23. Anthony Pratt, one of Australia's richest men, was once given advice by the boxing champion Muhammad Ali. If you get in a fight, run. But now, Anthony Pratt might not have that chance. Until now, Pratt was known for heading up Australia's second biggest private company. But then came October 5th, when it was revealed that former American President Donald Trump had allegedly revealed state secrets to Pratt in a secret meeting. Secrets he had no business hearing, even if he's not accused of breaking any laws. A series of leaked secret tapes and documents have revealed not just this. They also give us a peek into the channels of power and how billionaires can pay their way to meet the most powerful people in the world and influence them. Today, investigative reporters Nick McKenzie and Richard Baker on the tapes that reveal the difference between what Anthony Pratt says about the powerful in public and what he says in private. So, Richard and Nick, many of us were probably surprised earlier this month to see that an Australian cardboard magnate, who most people have probably not heard of, is at the heart of the latest scandal involving Donald Trump. So what can you tell us about Anthony Pratt? Who is he?
Well, he's a billionaire, a very, very successful businessman who took over his family's, his father's and his grandfather's packaging and recycling business when his father passed away, Richard Pratt, and expanded it. So from a $1 billion empire to a multi-billion dollar empire.
It's an honour to be awarded the North American CEO of the Year. I have many people to thank, but mainly the United States of America and the Pratt team for building a $3 billion company from scratch.
And along the way, he's been known for finding friends in high places in politics. No more so than in the US, where as a younger businessman, he built the Vizzy family business empire in New York and then across America.
Hello, everybody. We're here to celebrate a great opening and a great gentleman, as you know, from Australia, Anthony Pratt. And
Pratt had gained great access to Trump via things like becoming a member of Trump's Mar-a-Lago private club.
Anthony is one of the most successful men in the world, perhaps Australia's most successful man, as they say, right, Mr. Prime Minister. And he's building
And this has become a huge story recently because his relationship with Donald Trump exploded into the US news over allegations that Trump had given or leaked or disclosed to Pratt very sensitive and potentially classified information about America's submarine fleet. A huge story that took off a fortnight or so ago.
ABC America is reporting Donald Trump allegedly discussed nuclear submarines with foreign nationals, including Australian billionaire Anthony Pratt.
With an Australian packaging mogul. America's ABC News network reports...
That raises real questions about Trump's ability to keep secrets, but also raises questions about access to power.
I appreciate you a lot. You know that. You're my friend. And Anthony, you're fantastic. Thank you very much.
And Nick, we've now learned a lot more about the nature of Pratt's relationship with Trump through a number of secret tapes and leaked documents. So what are these tapes and where did they come from?
Well, we never go into our sources. Richard in particular has been looking at the Pratt business empire and Pratt's political relationships for a long time now, cultivating sources abroad, especially in the United States, where people have been pretty intrigued by Pratt. But through that investigation, we've got access to these extraordinary recordings.
What I'm trying to do is to network with people that can be useful.
And what do they tell us? It's well known that Pratt is close to power, likes being close to politicians. It's well known that he's got a strong relationship with Trump, and this has become big news recently. But what's not been known is what he really thinks about Trump and what it really is. What's his modus operandi about why he gets close to power and how he gets close to power. And that's why these tapes are so revealing. We see Anthony Pratt explaining why it was that he sought access and relationships with people like Trump, even Prince, now King Charles. In his terminology, he looks for political investments in undervalued political stock, people who'll become powerful later.
Prince Charles said, when he introduced me to Camilla, he's been very useful. And I thought, well, that's an insult. But then I thought, oh no, it's been being irrelevant. My superpower is that I'm rich. So I'm useful to him, right? I see him as an undervalued political stock because he's about to be king. It's just that he's a laughing stock now. But when he's king, they won't be laughing.
They're sorts of people he likes to target or to influence. And he does so through money. He says, my superpower on one of the tapes, he said, my superpower is I'm very, very rich. And that can be useful to people. And he hopes people can be useful to him. We suspect the wealthy and powerful in the business world seek these relationships for their own interests. We can see it happening sometimes from a distance, but very rarely do we see these very powerful business people explain, albeit while they're not knowing they're being recorded, about what it is that they're actually seeking in their own words. That's the power of these recordings.
Right. And in these recordings, we also hear about information that Trump allegedly disclosed to Pratt. And I should add that by receiving that information, Pratt isn't accused of any crimes, even if the president shouldn't have disclosed it. But tell us about that and what Trump allegedly said to him.
Well, according to Pratt, and when I say according to Pratt, according to secret recordings of Pratt saying what Trump told him. Now, Pratt doesn't mention submarines. He does say that Trump disclosed to him details about a military strike in Iraq on Iranian-linked militants very, very soon after it happened and before the US public had been told. So Pratt actually makes the point of saying, I was told this extraordinary information before it became public. He was told, according to Pratt, told by Trump, that the Iraqi leader had called him furious about this strike and relayed details of this conversation he had with the Iraqi leader to Pratt. Again, Pratt was surprised at getting access. You can hear the surprise, getting access to this information.
I hadn't even heard it. It hadn't even been on the news yet. He said, I just bombed Iraq today. And the president of Iraq called me up and said, you just leveled my city. And he said, and I said to him, okay, what are you going to do about it?
He says that Trump told him about the conversation he had with the Ukrainian president. This is the infamous conversation where he asks President Zelensky to do him a favour and investigate or places pressure on Zelensky to investigate the Biden family, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. And what Pratt says is Trump tells Pratt, I do this sort of stuff all the time. Again, an insight into we know of that call already. But what we didn't know is the way Trump's characterising it and to Pratt.
Yeah, and Trump said, that Ukraine phone call, that was nothing compared to what I usually do. And he said, that Ukraine phone call, that's nothing compared to what we usually talk about.
So these sorts of details are the sensitive information that a president of the most powerful nation in the world was disclosing to an Australian billionaire.
Richard, the tapes also refer to Rudolph Giuliani, who was Trump's personal lawyer. So tell me about those tapes and what sort of picture they paint of Anthony Pratt.
Well, one of the things these tapes reveal to everybody is an insight into a billionaire's thinking about the present time, but also about the future. And that's why he makes that reference to undervalued stock. And with Giuliani, there's an attraction to his history, as a prosecutor, as tough as nails, prosecutor who locked up bad guys, dealt with the mob, like that seems to excite him and titillate him. But he also says that being associated with Giuliani and being close to him has a rub-off effect that anyone who wants to go after Pratt or take him on might find that he can sick Giuliani onto them. He referred to him as a killer lawyer. So there's a protective thing there as well as, Pratt said he thinks he's kind of cool.
Rudy is someone that I hope will be useful one day. Plus, I just think he's cool. It's not all just sort of like...
So, it pays him off in many ways. And then, of course, Giuliani's also, I guess, by being plugged into the Trump network when Trump was in the White House, got access to all sorts of information that could be valuable in a business sense or a personal sense because he was that close to power himself. And, he was, I guess, an attack dog for the president. And this billionaire was hoping that if he needed him, he could do the same for him.
But interestingly, the tapes also reveal that Anthony Pratt appears to sort of turn on Trump, Giuliani, even Rupert Murdoch. He compares them all to, quote, the mafia. And he seems to savage the ethics of Trump, who has openly praised Pratt in the past. So what do you think Anthony Pratt's reaction to this outing of these private feelings will be?
I don't think he's going to relish it. But, you know, it reveals a bit of an insight into his personality, that calling those guys, those names that you mentioned, you know, aligning them with, well, he said, you know, mafia, that's not a condemnation. He thinks that's kind of cool because they're powerful, that nobody messes with them, that they just take no prisoners.
All of these guys are like the mafia. Trump, Rupert, Rudy. You want to be a customer, not a competitor.
So it's not a point of condemnation. It's almost like fanboy. These guys, wow, they can do things that nobody else can because they'll just go harder. And I find that really interesting when you're already super rich, super powerful, that there are people there that, you know, you think can do things you can't do.
So he's got this ability to say outrageous things, non-stop. He's outrageous. He just says whatever the fuck he wants. And he loves to shock people. He knows exactly what to say and what not to say so that he avoids jail. But gets so close to it that it looks to everyone like he's breaking the law. Like, he won't go up to someone and say, I want you to kill someone. He'll send someone to tell someone to kill someone.
This is a study of power and what the powerful say when they think no one's listening. And that's why it's so revealing. And there's some hypocrisy here. On the one hand, we see Pratt praising Trump publicly, supporting him, yet being privately scathing. And again, that should lead voters in Australia, the United States, to question why it is that billionaires align themselves with politicians and leaders. Is it because they genuinely think they're great leaders, or because there's some other interest at play?
We'll be right back. Nick, you've also discovered that Anthony Pratt made consultant payments to the likes of former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, and then there's attempts to control the Australian media narrative. These consulting relationships are obviously entirely legal, but some might find them surprising. So can you tell us about that?
Well, it wasn't just Mr. Abbott on the payroll, according to some documents that we've cited. There's Paul Keating mentioned. There's actually Keating's daughter. Now, we don't know precisely what it was that these two former prime ministers across the political aisle, a coalition, a Liberal leader and of course a Labor PM, were doing as consultants. But it does suggest a pattern that Pratt wants to get very influential political heavyweights close to him. In terms of shaping the media narrative, he's a long-standing and very well-known sponsor of large news outlets. It must be said he's a sponsor of Nine, the owner of The Age and Sydney Morning Herald, a big sponsor of the Fin Review, a sponsor of News Limited. He advertises, he sponsors forums that newspapers host to stimulate public debate about things such as climate or superannuation. But on these tapes, we again have a glimpse into perhaps another reason why he's deploying his funds in this fashion. And Pratt says of his sponsorship of certain Sky News programs, he says that he aligned his sponsorship to the politics of the day. And when Albanese and Biden got in, so more progressive Labor or Democrat leaders emerged pushing out the Conservatives in Australia and the US, he felt it wasn't a good idea to keep sponsoring these certain Sky programs. That tells us the sponsorship's about tracking with or aligning with the political narrative of the day and not pissing off the new government, which might not be big fans of Sky. And that suggests to us it's about seeking and maximising political influence.
Okay, and what's next for Anthony Pratt? Because he could be called as a witness to give evidence against Donald Trump, as he finds himself relevant to one of Trump's indictments, though, of course, he's not accused of any wrongdoing himself. So how could this dampen the relationship and the future success of Pratt's company?
Well, it'll be really interesting to see what the Biden administration does with this in terms of access for Anthony Pratt, because as we know, he moves with the times and, you know, he's had senior staff trying to get access and build relationships there. He's changed the focus of his advertising to more appealing things for progressive leaders. Now, will the tap be turned off in terms of access now that they know, I guess, what's said behind closed doors and the very mercantile approach to political relationships? And, you know, as investigators look at charges that Trump and Giuliani are facing over a number of things, you know, they may look through phone call records and things like that and look at some dates. And was Anthony Pratt talking to these guys at crucial times when you know, really scary and highly charged things were happening in American politics, in American life?
But there is no suggestion that Pratt is a suspect or has done anything wrong in these dealings in respect of this ongoing investigation by a special counsel in the US. Rather, the special counsel is looking at Trump and whether Trump has stored classified information improperly and disclosed it improperly. And that's why Pratt's been drawn into this. So Pratt risks being actually a witness against Trump. It's a very awkward place for a billionaire to be, of course. A billionaire who loves to control the public narrative around himself. But there's no suggestion he's done the wrong thing.
No, if anything, it could be used against Trump because it could show a pattern of Trump cavalierly privately discussing classified information.
Well, it would be an extraordinary thing if the special counsel can prove, and just allegations at the moment, that Trump actually gave classified and sensitive information beyond what's generally known, beyond what's on Wikipedia, about the US submarine fleet to Pratt, a foreign businessman with no need to know that information. I mean, the US submarine fleet is its critical last line of defence in a major conflict to keep the American people and its allies safe, and they guard, the US guards, for obvious reasons, details about how many nuclear warheads and the numbers, etc., to do with its fleet. So what's been disclosed, which is an open question, is critical. It's clear that one of the things Pratt did, or Pratt's camp does, is look to people who are close to power, the associates of presidents, prime ministers. And they might be people who Pratt gets close to, and who closer at one time to President Trump than Giuliani, a great contact and someone who perhaps is more eager than Trump to get money. It must be said, though, Pratt is not alone as a businessman who sought to buy membership to Mar-a-Lago to get close to Trump. It's a notorious fact, an infamous fact in the States, that many wealthy donors and businessmen have done just that. The real troubling thing is it's a really stark insight and illumination of how money buys access to power in the States. But we see that in Australia as well. And one fascinating thing on these recordings and through our research, we've learned that Pratt, we know he's been $1 million donor to the Yes Voice campaign, but he explains and has claimed in private conversations why he did that. And he says, my staffer, Pratt's staffer, made an approach to Albanese's office. A very senior staffer there was asked, can we do something to help the Labor government? A request made its way back. Yes, what you can do is support the Voice. So it's Pratt not just simply supporting a policy idea that he wants to further or forward or push ahead, but doing so because the Prime Minister's office has asked him to do so. And that leads to the question, is his money being deployed in a way not simply to aid the public interest, but to aid his standing with the powerful and ultimately to aid his private interest?
Thank you, Nick and Richard, for joining us.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Today's episode of Please Explain was produced by Julia Carr-Katzel. Our executive producer is Ruby Schwartz. Please Explain is a production of The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. If you enjoy the show and want more of our journalism, subscribe to our newspapers today. It's the best way to support what we do. Search The Age or smh.com.au/subscribe. I'm Samantha Selinger Morris. This is Please Explain. Thanks for listening.